The president had earlier in October alluded to that fact that schools would be opened. Then the Ministry of Education and Sports came up with the schools calendar that was very clear that come 10th of this very month, schools are going to reopen. We want to discuss reopening of schools, more so that is safe reopening of schools or the education sector. We know that about 15 million Ugandans, when we talk about schools, are taking on education at various levels, right from pre-primary, come to primary, then secondary, tertiary, and of course our institutions of learning. Now with me this morning, I'm honored to have the mouthpiece or the spokesperson of the Ministry of Education and Sports, that is Dr. Dennis Mujimba, with whom we are going to discuss a number of issues, not forgetting that you too can be part of this discussion by simply going to our media platforms and sending in your question or anything that you want to know as far as reopening of schools is concerned. And the number will be on your screen. That is our WhatsApp number, which you can use to send us the traditional SMS, but also on a WhatsApp message, and I'll be reading that out this morning. Doctor, you're most welcome to our studios once again.
Thank you so much, Robert. Happy New Year to you and Happy New Year to our viewers.
Well, Doctor, beginning straight with the hottest issue, that is, we all know that yes, schools are going to be reopened. But there has come a word, phased or staggered reopening. For a parent watching this show this very morning, they need assurance. Who is starting? Who is ending? How are we going to roll out this? Let's begin with that.
Thank you so much, Robert. A lot has changed since we were last here as a ministry, in that a new disruption has emerged, which is the Omicron variant, very highly transmissible, but with very mild cases. Doesn't cause severe disease, a lot of severe disease, compared with the variant of Delta. Now, which means that we are getting so many people infected, though you're not getting many of them severely ill. Now that has caused a little bit of anxiety in the public that are we still going to maintain reopening everyone on 10th? We are still going to reopen the way we had communicated. The minister communicated on 15th December. We are reopening all our basic and secondary education levels, which is pre-primary, primary and secondary schools, come 10th of January, which is next Monday. We are going to be religious in endeavoring to observe the SOPs once the students get there. Now, the critical bit is that once everyone is there, then you have to make sure you keep that space safe. So initially we had thought of staggering and phasing etc. So that is not the arrangement anymore. However, what you have heard, and I think it has now come out in the New Vision and Daily Monitor, is the staggering of reopening for boarding schools in Kampala, Wakiso, Mukono, and Mpigi districts. And the reason for this staggered reopening, with effect from 10th of January to 13th, is that we had a very bad situation when we closed in June. Literally the entire road traffic network around Kampala metropolitan area was completely blocked. And when you have a highly transmissible disease agent, the Omicron variant, and you have so much congestion, of course you will contribute to spreading it even much more. So we have worked in consultation with other stakeholders, Ministry of Works, Internal Affairs, Ministry of Health, the local governments that mentioned, Mpigi, Mukono, Wakiso and Kampala, to see how the boarding students can be staggered in reopening. And now for Mpigi and Wakiso, we are going to have the A-levels and the lower primary reopen on 10th.
That is A-level, that is
yes,
senior 5,
that is A-level,
senior 6.
No, yes, senior 5 and senior 6, then lower primary. Boarding students will reopen on 10th. Then on the 11th, still in PG and Wakiso, you will have O level, that is on the 11th. On the 12th, you'll have O levels, senior 1 to senior 4. Then you have P5, P6, and P7. Boarding students, however, the day students, for them, they report on 10th. Now, then for Kampala and Mukono, you'll have on the 11th, which is a Tuesday, senior 5 and senior 6, then the lower primary boarding students. Then on 13th, which is a Wednesday, you'll have for Kampala and Wakiso boarding students for senior 1 to senior 4, then P5 to P7. Now, that is the staggering, but it's only for Kampala, Wakiso, and Impigi.
Then Mukono also.
And Mukono, yes. For the unique, it was terrible. By the way, some of our ministry staff who even stepped in to help in transport arrangements around the taxi parks and bus parks, they themselves got sick. And remember that time it was Delta. People felt very sick, same as the police that stepped in to help. So it wasn't a good thing at all. So as the president guided, we have now come up with this plan of staggered reopening for boarding students within these 4 districts. Yes.
Doctor, talking about the staggered reopening, the big question now here comes in, okay, they'll go back to school.
Yes.
But how safe is the school environment? One of the things here where you said it's not the first reopening is, I don't want to believe that we've had schools during this lockdown that have built more classrooms or dormitories. So if you're having the same population, we're knowing the congestion in our schools. How safe is this? That some are going back to triple deckers, some are going back to double deckers, some we have schools where they sit 3 per bench, maybe of this size. So there is already enough congestion in our schools.
Now, when we came up with the reopening, full reopening schedule, we realized all those challenges were there. However, we've also tried as much as possible to benchmark how are other countries doing it. Now, as long as there are certain minimums you can have, one of the key things, one of the major ingredients we have to have in place, with or without social distancing, is wearing of masks amongst the learners. Yesterday I was reading and listening to the BBC. The UK is going to reopen in a few days' time for the new term. Now, they have very high cases of COVID-19 and they are attributing it to Omicron. But they're emphasizing that when learners report, all learners must put on masks. There is a limit to which, when you have everyone reporting back, to which you can enforce social distancing, especially amongst young people in our population. It's going to be difficult. But one of the easy things you can enforce is wearing of masks. And wearing of masks alone reduces a significant proportion or probability of people transmitting the virus. So that is going to be very key. Now, in this respect, you have to have the parents providing these masks. As government, we are not going to provide the masks. And our schools, the public schools, are not going to provide those masks. We've not heard of private schools saying they are going to do so. But if they take that step, they will pass on the cost to the parent. So at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of the parent to ensure that your child has sufficient masks. And then when you report to school, it is the responsibility of the head teacher to enforce wearing of masks all the time. That is how we are going to get out of this. The other bit of sanitizing, you cannot sanitize all the time, but you can sanitize regularly. You can wash hands regularly. But wearing of masks is going to make a big difference in our schools. Now, we looked at the possibility of when all of the learners return, there are some schools which have space and they can use shifts. Those who think that they can use shift system, they are free to go ahead and do that. But we are not prescribing it for the whole country. It is going to be on a case-by-case basis, according to the flexibility and the space available to each school. But the principle is all the learners will be reporting back on the 10th. Now, the other element of safety that you and I need really to be mindful about is the teacher. You see, you don't want to be in a situation where you're having learners back and you're having teachers absent. Absent not because they don't want to teach, but because they are falling sick. Now, vaccination is the major intervention that we are prescribing for the teacher, most of the teachers above 18 years. So we can say all teachers and staff, please go get vaccinated. Now, the COVID vaccine does not stop you from getting infected, but it reduces the probability of you getting the severe forms of the disease. So you remain on your feet. So as the president even communicated, he is now saying even learners who are 18 years and above, in these basic and secondary education levels, you also go get vaccinated.
The biggest question now,
yes,
Doctor,
please.
here is how are you going to enforce this? Because Monday is
Yes.
not very far. The
Yes.
10th is not very far. When we look at people that have been fully vaccinated, when the president was giving us a picture, he talked about 3.8. Total people, those that have been given out about 11 point something.
Yes.
So when we go to the education sector,
Yes.
you know, how are you going to enforce this? Because we know we have about 28,000 education institutions that are private in this country, and actually they happen to be the majority. We know with commercialization, many schools aim at profit. Some are family-owned schools. So how is a leader or a director of a school going to chase what we call, you know what I'm referring to, grade A teachers, teachers of distinction? What we mean, those that they know these are pivotal in performance of. So where is your implementation mandate? How are you going to? This seems more than less practical.
You raise a very important question, and in this era, and if you heard what the president has been saying, we are moving into a phase where you are depending to a good degree on individual responsibility. However, system-wise and in institutionalizing these measures, we have decided that the head of the institution, you're the one accountable for enforcement of these SOPs. So Robert, as the head teacher, it is your responsibility, and it is in the best interest of your teachers and your learners that the teachers and staff who are supposed to be vaccinated, before you allow them in school, get them vaccinated. The likelihood of you getting COVID and the severe form, and by the losing your life, is high. So it is now up to me as a teacher to know that it is in my best interest to go and get vaccinated. All right? However, I'll do my part as a head teacher. I will not allow you to come into class. Now, there are some people, by the way, we've had stories in other countries, you know, not just stories, but documented, where some people have actually forged vaccination cards.
Even in Uganda.
Yes. Now, if you get the severe form of the disease, by the way, even if you survive death, there are long-term side effects of COVID-19.
And actually, many people have not died of COVID-19.
Yes.
They have recovered from COVID-19, but
Yes.
those effects
Exactly, those effects live
are
with
the
you.
one that have killed them.
So why try to beat the system? Okay, it is for your own good that you get vaccinated. And by the way, Robert, we are here just joking with COVID, but most of our generation, we don't know much about smallpox. But smallpox, which had a case fatality, as in almost 30% of people who would get smallpox would pass away. Now, smallpox was eradicated on the power of vaccination. But the last case of smallpox was in around 1977. And by 1979, it was declared eradicated in the whole world. But every traveler out of the country, you'd have to be vaccinated. You have to prove that you're vaccinated. Homes had to be fumigated. If at all you refuse to have your home fumigated, the vermis would actually punish you or imprison you themselves. Because it took a community effort to eradicate smallpox with vaccination. But you have a generation that is so laxed on proven measures of controlling disease outbreaks. It is in the best interest of the teacher and the best interest of the parent to go and get vaccinated. By the way, Robert, we are talking about safe schools. But you also have to make, these schools are also posing some risk to the parents who are 50 years and above. By the way, not just 50 years, even a 25-year-old
Actually, what happened last time,
yes.
I was trying to look at the statistics of people who died in the second wave.
Yes.
Many of these were people who had who are 50 and above,
yes.
all had those underlying factors. And when I try to listen to some of the stories,
yes.
They will tell you this grandmother contracted COVID-19 from the grandkids.
Yes.
They went to school. For them, because of their bodies, the immune system is still strong. Many of them, flu, respiratory diseases are what they go through every day.
Yes.
So they have built that immune system.
Yes.
But they were killing these old people.
Yes, and that is why, and this opportunity of reopening should also be used by the parents, and schools should help mobilize parents to get vaccinated. It is possible, Robert. When you reopen, you can liaise with the health facility and mobilize parents of your learners to come and get vaccination jabs from your school.
You drop a child, pick.
Exactly. It is doable. It is doable. But we should not play around with COVID, people. We have reopened for the learners, but we are not ignorant of the risk that it carries. So let us use this opportunity, get the teachers vaccinated, get the staff vaccinated, get learners who are above 18 vaccinated, get the parents. I lost many age mates of mine in their 40s. Now, this whole thing that COVID does not kill people who are in their 40s is a pure lie. We lost colleagues who are in their 40s, lecturers, head teachers, board members, etc. They were just in their 40s. So when we talk of parents who are at risk, we are not just talking of the 60 or 70, 80-year-old. We are talking people of our age group, you and I. Because we also have other issues that make us more susceptible. We are a generation that is obese. If you're overweight, you're more at risk than someone who is normal body weight size. So it is in the best interest of every member of the public to ensure that any person who is eligible for vaccination goes for vaccination. These other SOPs are good, by the way. Wearing of masks, sanitizing, washing hands, etc. Social distancing, all this is good. But in an era when you have variants and you do not know, you're not seeing the end of this disease in sight, it is in our best interest that we adopt proven scientific measures, and vaccination is at the forefront. Thank you.
Doctor, another interesting bit here with the reopening of schools.
Yes.
Parents
Yes.
are worried of the fares. This may seem at individual level.
The school fees.
But we've had so much of the outcry. And I remember very well the First Lady and the Minister for Education and Sports are clearly coming out and urging schools, saying do not increase school fees. Because we are coming from a tough time, parents don't have the money, let's bear this. Education institutions, most of the private, they are coming out and saying, but what has government provided for us? Say, what has the ministry just talked about regular wash of hands, you know, because they're saying you're talking of soaps or standard operating procedures, my water bill is going to increase, maybe somehow I have to carry out spacing, so there are additional charges on us. And of course, in business, this goes back to the final consumer.
Yes.
So how are we going to ensure that we harmonize this situation? Because indeed we know times are hard, but you know students have been home for a long time.
Yes.
And every parent's desire is to see them back to school.
There is a remark that the First Lady made when she was reopening, announcing the calendar. She said that we are aware that you schools need the fees No one, government is not expecting especially all institutions, by the way, including UPE and USE schools, they need funds to operate. Now, the good thing is that for UPE and USE schools, a significant part is offset by government support. Now, for the private schools and non-universal secondary education institutions, we still acknowledge that they need money or funds to operate. What she clearly said is what we are against is not no payment of fees, but arbitrary increment of fees. And she said, be compassionate, understand that just like you, the institution, the proprietors, you've been in a hard situation economically. The students are coming from families who are in communities where you also live. So it is very inconsiderate for you to be asking a senior one student to pay up almost 3 million shillings to report for first term. It's very inconsiderate. Now, all this is being observed. I cannot say that I don't want to predict what government is going to do, but I think government will just not let everything go out of hand. But everything is being monitored. But also what is very surprising, Robert, is that the most expensive schools are government-aided schools. That is a huge contradiction. Government-aided schools are proving to be much more expensive than private schools. Government is making this wage bill of more than 30 of your teachers. They are giving infrastructure. They are giving all these things. But then you're charging learners almost 3 million shillings. So I think at some time, something has to be done. And everything is being monitored, but I think there will probably be a response. But it is very
Doctor,
unfortunate.
on that, before we leave it, I remember very well, Ministry of Education and Sports, about, you can remind me, maybe about 4 or 5 years back, they came up with a proper guideline if you're to increase fees that you must follow. And it was a policy and adopted, whereby the PTA must approve. There was a criteria even right, I think, to the ministry and give specific reasons why you're increasing tuition.
But you see, there is, I don't want to call it a culture, but it is a level of indiscipline where we just do not want to follow mateka or guidelines or whatever in society. And it is very unfortunate because at the end of the day, we end up hurting our own people. Now, I can assure you all these institutions that are making arbitrary increment in fees, they are not having the approval of the ministry. So the public should not think these increments have been endorsed necessarily by the ministry. And the guideline, when the calendar was being released, it was very clearly announced that remain with the charges that you had pre-school closures. So it's, everyone knows schools are in a difficult situation. But what we want also the owners of these schools and operators and managers to understand is that just like you are in a difficult situation as a school, the families where the learners are coming from are also in a difficult situation.
Well, we just hope that they will be able to pick up this, unless it is enforcement, more so now with commercialization of education. And maybe where many feel and think that also maybe your ministry has not come out to understand and be an answer to their plight. I was speaking to the leader of that is private schools in Uwero, and he told me, Robert, before now we also have this issue of licenses. And I want you, doctor, to clarify on this. He says our licenses were recalled.